And how many fires did they have over there? Three fires. And what were they boiling? And where did you get the sap from? From the trees. The trees give us sap, a whole lot of water, a little bit of sugar. And what we're going to do is we're going to change it into a whole lot of sugar, a little bit of water. So we're going to get rid of the water, save the sugar, thank you to the trees. We have a really neat sap collection system. Our trees are way up above the sugar shack, and we created a sap slide. We drill a hole, and the sap comes out of the tree, goes down the drop line, goes down the connecting line, and it all flows into the big black main line that runs up the hill there and up the hill here. And it all comes sliding down from up on high and splash right into this tank. And we don't have to go up and down the hill. They say we're lazy over here, but we're just smarter than they are. So thank you to the trees. Thank you to the trees. We got a sap slide, and one day, if we have really good sap flow, we can fill that tank with 125 trees that I got around the building, and we can process it in my evaporator in 6 hours into maple syrup. Takes Granny 3 days to do the same thing. So here comes the sap coming from the tank through the tube into the evaporator, and the evaporator has 3 parts to it. It's got the big boiling pan, it's got the small finishing pan, and the 2 pans sit on a firebox. See the big gray firebox? Yeah. There's a fire in there. When you walked in, if it didn't know I had a big rip-roaring fire. Want to open the doors, Mel?
Wow.
We call that a rip-roaring fire. Did you say that?
Rip-roaring.
It feels good to say that, doesn't it? So that's what it is. So the heat and smoke come along the firebox, come along here. The heat goes into the sap, it's making the water go away, and the smoke is going up the chimney. It's the heat from the fire that's going into the sap that's making the water go away. If you put your hand on here, it's cold to the touch because it's a well-insulated box, and all the heat has to go into the sap. It's very efficient. That's why we can do this in 6 hours, and Granny takes 3 days because of the way her fires they lose a lot of energy to the atmosphere. So it's a much more efficient way of utilizing the energy in your wood. And all sugar shacks have a very fancy rooftop, because there goes the water. We have to get the water out of the building. So we've got fancy doors instead of windows in part of our roof. Count to 3 with me and we'll open them. You ready? 1, 2, 3. There goes the water out of the sugar shack. So wave to buy the water. Buy water. Hello, sugar. The sugar stays behind. There goes the water. And the sugar stays behind until when you see my maple syrup now, you have to go, ooh. Okay, you ready? Ooh. Now, how do I know when it's ready? Well, I don't have to taste it. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to phone Granny Maple and ask her opinion. I've got a fancy thermometer inside here, and when the needles are lined up at 104, it means the maple syrup is ready. Time to get it out of the evaporator and package it and sell it. So at 104, I know it's going to make perfect maple syrup, 66.5% maple sugar, no more and no less. That's the way you call it pure, and that's the stuff you want to buy. So let's have a little, when we open this up. You ready? I know it's late today. Let's try this all over again. Okay, you ready? Let's hear it. Ooh. That's how easy it is to make maple syrup in the evaporator. So what we do is we have to filter it, and you can see that there's some gray material, that's maple sand that came from the minerals that came up with the sap. And it fell out of solution, and you have to filter it out. Anybody that makes maple syrup has to filter the maple sand out of there. You don't want that in your pancake. And we put it while it's still hot. While it's still hot in a container like this, and it has to say pure maple syrup, or else you bought the wrong thing. So look for that word, pure maple syrup. Not like there's the bottles on the wall over there. Says original syrup. Don't get fooled, that's corn syrup. It's cheaper, but it's also full of chemicals and not really very good for you. So look for the pure on the label. And there's 3 different grades. You have extra light, light, and medium. That's Canada number 1. Canada number 2 is amber. Canada number 3 is the dark stuff. You can see it in the window. Now what makes the difference in the color is that the light stuff is made early in the season. It gets darker as the season goes along because there's a lot of sugar to start with. So I only have to boil off 20 buckets to get a bucket of maple syrup. Not in the evaporator very long, so it doesn't burn any sugar. As you leave it in there longer because they haven't got as much starting sugar, you have to boil off a lot more water. It's in there longer, it gets darker. So the longer it's in here, the darker it gets until the end of the season, where it's so dark and so bitter that you just can't sell it. There's no point in even continuing at that point. That'll be about the middle of April. So it's how long it's in the evaporator, how dark it is. It's all the same sweetness, but it's a personal preference whether you like the dark or the light. My wife likes the extra light, the light. I like the medium, so we don't fight. We have 2 jugs in our house, one's light and one's medium. Solves the problem. Anybody have any questions? So we've taken a whole lot of water, a little bit of sugar, got rid of the water, saved the sugar. We know when to take it out, and we got the right amount of sugar, the 104. Because when you pour it into the container, it cools down, you want it to stay as a syrup. If you take off too much water, I'll show you what happens. This is an experiment that went wrong earlier in the last week. Is that you take off too much water, you make sugar, and when you cool it, when it cools down, it turns into sugar, and you can't keep it as a syrup. That's what the pioneers did. They made blocks of sugar and by taking off a lot more water than you need to make maple syrup. So, any questions? Mel's an expert at everything. You can ask Mel a question.
I'll go get them.
So thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.